Matt, are you ready to go? 'Cause I'm ready to go. What you gonna do, baby, baby?
Two great things that go great together when worlds collide.
That's how we roll. 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 Welcome to the Goblins Corner. My name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight,
We're talking about when worlds collide.
that's right, blending different genres of games.
Absolutely.
You've got some cyberpunk in my fantasy. I've got some fantasy in your heartfelt 1920s teenage drama game. It could happen.
Sure.
I mean, could be anything, really.
That's the whole point.
Yeah. And what we're talking about is how to build a game that is not only engaging, but also very useful in terms of taking not just one genre, say sci-fi, horror, survival, and merging the genres together.
Sure. A lot like WandaVision.
Yes, very much like WandaVision or GURPS, which we'll probably allude to frequently in this episode. But if you haven't yet, hit the like and subscribe button. Help our show get out to more people and get notified when more awesome episodes come your way.
And if you're listening to the show, give us a review on iTunes or Podchaser.
As the world smashed together, they shall encompass the mighty algorithm, and it shall behold something. It shall behold us. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that. That's good. So, Matt, why are we talking about blending genres of games together?
For one thing, it provides a sense of what I call strange familiarity. And that's basically where something absolutely is not what you're used to, but it doesn't feel alien either.
Yeah. Blending genres can provide some truly unique settings, and steampunk fantasy game Eberron is a perfect example of blended genres, right? So you've got pulp action in Eberron,
Sure.
You've got steampunk, you've got the fantasy D&D hack and slash.
And if you go the Inquisitor route, you can definitely do some noir.
Oh yeah, it's got some noir feel to it, little blades in the dark even.
And even in and of itself, steampunk is a blended genre just by itself.
Yeah, punk plus steam equals steampunk.
You got what, Starfinder? That's sci-fi fantasy.
Absolutely. So blending genres is a great way to have a very unique game without doing a whole lot of work.
Sure. It lets you explore different concepts in existing game settings as well.
What do you mean by that, Matt?
Okay, so Forgotten Realms, high fantasy. Boom, smack dab in the middle of that, right? But if you take Lantan, which is where all the gnomes and people are tinkering, Gone, the Wonder Maker. Exactly. They've got guns and other things. And so you start to lean a little bit more into that whole Renaissance style of game that you don't necessarily get in a lot of high fantasy.
Makes perfect sense to me. Additionally, you can use it as another excuse for in-depth world building, as we've mentioned before. And most importantly, I might add, you can also
add some flavor.
Add some of that delicious flavor to your game.
It's what we do. It's what we love.
Yeah. So let's jump in. How do we go about blending genres, Matt?
First, let's set up some of the basics.
Okay. What are some basics we're talking about here?
Are the genres the primary focus of the game or just the background for the world?
Okay. What are we talking about when we say like primary focus versus background?
Shadowrun is a good example. The world is sci-fi fantasy punk.
Sure.
Right?
That's cyberpunk plus magic.
Right. That is simply the background. That is, you exist in this world. How you interplay with the Megacorps, with your Johnson, with each other, that's the story. Whereas in a space heavy, especially like a hard sci-fi game, that is going to be part of the primary focus of the game. It's not just the setting. Your existence as a character relies on successfully maintaining the ship.
When you're in like a hard-boiled sci-fi survival style game, that's the focus. Or even, horror games are a great example of like blended genres where the main focus is, because it's usually, and we've mentioned survival games before, survival campaigns.
Sure.
One of the things is there is some kind of event that has happened.
Yeah.
And that event defines the world. And so like horror games and survival games are really big on that, in that you've got some kind of, the zombies have approached, they've risen up out of the graves. They're hungry for McDonald's hamburgers and your brains. And that is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Right? How do you live with that?
That is not only the background, that is a major plot point.
Yep. So that's the game you're playing.
Right.
Either something that's ridiculous in the background and its flavor more than anything else,
Sure.
or it is an event that has happened.
Right.
Once you get that, you kind of got to figure out your world in general. Now, this may be determined by what you're playing.
Sure.
So if you're playing Shadowrun, again, it is what it is.
Yep.
But if you're playing something like Rifts, it could be anything.
Literally anything.
And if you've never seen Rifts, go check it out. It's been around for a long time. And let me tell you, anything you want to slice, it has.
Yes. Some things have aged better than others in that system, but it is
Sure.
still filled with amazing concepts that people should check out.
Mm-hmm. So we've got this world, we've got this overarching style that we're going to be mashing together, a couple different genres. What's next?
What's your starting locale, right? Where are you in this world? If you're in a small village, that's going to feel completely different than a major metropolis, which is going to feel completely different than a deserted island.
Yeah, because a deserted island might have pirates,
Sure.
might have different, seafaring themes,
But you're also going to be mostly safe from the zombie apocalypse.
unless the zombies can swim, and then you're screwed.
Or they're just going to march along the bottom.
Yeah, they just tromp along, eventually come out. There's like fish and remoras attached to them and such.
Sure. Barnacles.
Yeah, barnacle zombies will get you, man. They'll smash you, pierce you with the barnacles.
Yeah. And that is actually super awful.
That is a zombie with armor, my friend. Barnacled zombies. We're adding that to the game.
Sure.
So once you've got your starting locale, then it's the typical campaign build, right?
Right.
You've got characters, you've got their backstory, how much they know about the world in general.
Sure. And that can also be part of the genre build, right? What caused this zombie apocalypse? Don't know.
Too many donuts.
Could be anything.
It could be donuts.
Could be
We're
donuts.
going to say it's donuts. I'm on a fast food kick, apparently, tonight.
It's voodoo donuts.
Voodoo donuts.
Yeah.
Now, that is a world-ending event, folks. Think about that.
We are not sponsored by Voodoo Donuts.
We're not sponsored by anything. So we've got characters, their backstory, something they know about the world. There are many different ways to build a world, but there are basically two versions for mashing, colliding genres together.
Sure.
The first one is you've got the end result, as we mentioned before, right?
Mhm.
Zombies have come. Zombies are a great example of all of this, right?
Sure.
The zombie apocalypse has happened. We take that concept, work backwards into how the world arrived at its current state.
Right.
We've got zombies. All right. Happens, right?
Sure.
You're dealing with your day-to-day. Maybe we live in a world where there's zombies are just a common occurrence. It's not as we mentioned, it's not the overarching theme.
Yeah. You just put brains on the end of the stick, use them to draw the cart, right? Like,
Got free power.
yep.
Power forever. The second option is take two genres, cherry pick the bits that you like, and then figure out how each kind of influences or informs the next.
Right. And that is the difference between the narrative genre colliding and the world building genre colliding.
Yes. And if folks are a little confused, don't worry. We've got a couple of examples. Talk about zombies again. So let's look at example one, the end result. Okay.
Sure.
So what is that? That's zombie apocalypse, right?
Right. So as an example, if you run the game where a small town in a fantasy world is facing a zombie apocalypse,
Okay.
you already know what you want your finished product to look like. You want a small fantasy town being attacked by zombies.
Yeah. Pretty easy, right?
Right. That's zombie survival plus fantasy. Boom.
Now you just work backwards, build the town, figure out the source of the zombies, right?
Right.
Is it the local DMV? They're popping out. They're going in there to update their car,
Die of old age.
and they come back as just pissed
Anger.
off.
Yeah, they're angry.
They're angry zombies, killing pedestrians. What kind of game are you playing? So in this example, let's do something that maybe people haven't heard of too much of, Kids on Brooms,
Okay.
which is a
Sure.
modified version of Kids on Bikes. And if you haven't
Right.
played it, it's a very simple system. We're just going to use this as an example because you can literally apply blending genres to any game. Doesn't matter what it is, any system.
Sure. Okay. So Kids on Brooms is modeled after the magic school genre.
Okay.
It's going to be set on Earth or something very Earth-like, where magic is not necessarily a major known part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, the overarching theme is going to be survival. There's a zombie apocalypse going on, kids.
Sure. Okay. So the zombie apocalypse is beginning.
Mm-hmm. At your fantasy school in Atlanta, since that's where we are?
Sure. Atlanta Zombie Apocalypse School.
Right.
All right. So there's a lot of things that are going to go down. Society's probably going to collapse at some point. Maybe not. Maybe everyone gets along with the zombies.
Yeah. Maybe it could turn into a Scooby-Doo style situation where our erstwhile heroes are trying to solve the zombie apocalypse.
It's true.
I mean, they have to stay alive in the meantime.
It's checking the Twitter feed too often. That's what turns them into zombies.
That and donuts.
That and donuts. Yes. Delightful donuts.
Twitter donuts.
Okay. So they're a fantasy school in Atlanta. We've got some characters, come up with the characters. Now we mash the genres together, right?
Sure.
So we've got the fantasy, easy enough, comes with the game. Kids on brooms and kids on bikes, got that fantasy already built into everything, right?
Sure.
So what elements are fantasy?
Well, you've got magic, right? The kids are going to have wands or what have you.
We got the zombies.
You got the zombies.
These are the Night of the Living Dead style walking type of stuff.
And that's a decision you're going to have to make when you're genre blending, right? Are these going to be the shuffling brains zombies, or are these going to be the sprinting after you? Are they I Am Legend zombies where they have some intellect and they're just malevolent and hungry? You need to know these things.
Yeah. So it's not just one genre, it's picking a very specific genre for each. Now, in this case, we're just doing two, but
right.
You can mash up 5, 6 genres if you want, right? It doesn't really matter.
Something else we got to think about. Is it a virus? Is it necromancy? How did these zombies come about? And is it contagious? That's super important to know.
Oh, yeah. How does it spread?
Yeah.
How do they grow? They make too many posts on Twitter. That's what they do. And everyone checks it. They get angry. They turn into zombies. And they do more posts on Twitter.
Sure. Why not?
I've been reading too much Twitter this week.
So you're saying their post went viral?
Oh, very good. I like that. Very nice. So the event triggers the merger.
Sure.
What's the severity level of this event?
Right. Is it something that was a post that was, say, local to the school, or was it a post that was local to Atlanta, or was it just something about global politics and the whole world is now Twitter zombies?
Yep. And you start coloring all of this in, and you determine how much zombie versus how much fantasy.
Sure.
And then start it someplace.
Yep.
And run the game.
And you're good.
And you're good. And that's the first example. So before we go into the cherry picking version of this, we've got what, Matt?
It's time for the question of the week.
All right. What kind of cherries have you picked for us this week?
I'm going to keep it on theme, like I try to do.
Zombies with donuts?
Yes. No. Kinda. Okay. If you were going to start an off-the-rails, just absolutely wild campaign, what would your genre fusion be?
Oh, my genre fusion would be a bag of mushrooms and a game of Troika.
Maybe
probably
a
not
little
the same
further off the rails than I was intending.
Probably not the same kind of mashup that people were expecting. Let's talk about genres then.
Okay.
So I'm going to say Wild West themed.
Mm-hmm.
So the Wild West genre meets Psychonauts, like the Psychonauts the game.
Sure.
So gunslingers are basically scions.
All right. I could dig that.
In like a Wild West theme. So like psychic Wild West gunplay.
I like that.
That'd be a lot of fun. And I could say you could use any system for that. You could use Deadlands for that. It'd be pretty easy to just modify, one of those.
Sure.
You could use World of Darkness.
Yeah.
Could use D&D D20.
Sure.
Could you imagine that, Matt? You're rolling through on your horse, your psionic horse. The horse is floating. It's on it's got a nice hat.
Sure.
Maybe it's talking to you.
Why wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't it? It's a psionic horse, right?
Yeah.
You roll into a dusty town, you need a drink of whiskey.
For some reason, my brain was like, if you've got a talking horse, but it's a psionic talking horse, it's not Mr. Ed, It's Lord Edward.
Yes, Lord Edward of...
My horse.
Get off your high horse? Very nice. Yeah, you get off your high horse, and then there's some other egghead that's there, and he wants to draw. And the bullets I conceive are basically philosophical discussions that you badger somebody with.
Either that, or if you've someone who's already gone around the bend a little bit, they're like the cartoon bullets from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that too. That'd be fun. So like psionic cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there'll be mind flayers in it as well.
Sure.
Just because. Matt, what would yours be if you're going to go off the rails and blend some genres together?
Clearly the answer to this question is My Little Ponies and Gothic horror.
My Little Ponies, Gothic horror.
Yes.
I really like that. They discover a dead body, and they've got to use the power of friendship.
Absolutely.
To solve the mystery.
Yeah.
It should be definitely like some murder mystery. I would even say the Gothic horror could almost bleed a little bit into some noir, like My Little Pony Gothic horror noir.
Okay.
That way you can kind of do
little Bela Lugosi meets Dick Tracy.
Yeah, do a little step aside, maybe have like a monologue for your character all of their own.
Nice. Absolutely.
It was a terrible day in Ponyville when I saw the dead body, and only then could I see that I had to use my friendship with everyone to solve this mystery. And then the pony puts a hat on.
Sure.
Smokes a big fat cigar. That'd be awesome.
Grabs a bourbon real quick.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'd drink with that pony. Of course, we're always interested to know what your answer to the question of the week is, so hit us up at Goblin's Corner on Twitter. And of course, you can find us on all of the plethora of social media channels.
Indeed. Like in the comments below for this YouTube video if you're watching here.
Yeah, and I think Spotify is going to let us get yelled at pretty soon, too, with comments.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There's nothing like being yelled at.
More engagement. So, as we mentioned before, when we're talking about blending genres together, the first way is to just, hey, this is the event, it happens, bam.
Whatever's necessary for the narrative.
Right. Now we're going to go into the second example of cherry picking this together. So, how do we start that?
This is the opposite side of the coin to the narrative method.
Okay.
So, what happens if there is a necromantic apocalypse in a fantasy world is the actual question. It's not necessarily the driving focus. You're building the world that now exists.
So it's not the event. I mean, there was an event, but it's not like the event is the focus. It's just the backdrop.
Right.
Okay.
So now you have to work out to what extent this event changes all of the standard fantasy tropes.
Yeah.
How far has the world fallen? Are mortal enemies working together to survive? Like, are you living in a city that is being defended by heroes and dragons just because the hordes of zombies are so large that it requires that?
Yeah. How terrible has things gotten?
Right.
Okay. So in that case, if the events have already happened, it's just a thing. It's the status of the world.
Right.
So it is not the focus, which means the focus should be on something other than what's going on.
Sure.
So in improv, they say if that was true, what else is true?
Yeah.
So, okay, what's going on with this world? Most likely, because it's a role-playing game, you're going to focus on adventures, relationships, characters, and occasionally the zombie hordes.
Right.
Now, they will influence everything in your game world, but it's not a fight for survival every day.
Unless it is.
Right.
When you're building a world where an event has happened, you have to ask yourself, how has the world adapted to this event? In the case of the survival horror style game, why is there suddenly a siege on this town?
What has changed with the status quo?
What do people think and feel about this event as a whole?
Yeah.
Like, how has it affected society? What are their emotional states? That sort of thing.
Or more specifically, how long has it actually been affecting them as well? So in general, when you get to like zombie survival horror or any type of theme, if something has happened, it'll go back to Eberron, right? So the whole cataclysm that happened with Sire, the Mournlands, that was recent in the game.
Yes.
Was within the last, like a year or two after the Mournlands, right?
Yep.
And so that is a focal point for the game in many ways. There's a lot of other stuff going on because it's a big world, but that was a huge thing that stopped the Great War.
Sure.
Now, if it is 100 years since the Morin lands were formed, you've got other focuses, right? That's something that exists now.
Yeah. It is a thing. It is a major world-changing historic event that we have distance from.
Yes, because we have more different perspective now because it is no longer living in the moment.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing. You're not living in the moment. So if a sudden siege occurs in our medieval necromantic city,
right, we're back in the moment.
You're back in the moment, right? So then you go back and relive it. So how long has it been this way? If it's been 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years, they may have invented ways to deal with everything. Because
sure,
if they haven't, they're dead.
Sure.
What opportunities or difficulties have been created through the blending of these genres? I'll give you a different example that's not zombie related with donuts.
Okay.
So let's say you have a magical Wild West game.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say Deadlands. How does that change? If it's been around for a while, then much of the technology that you might have invented when you didn't have magic, now you suddenly have.
And some of that stuff can be ways of simply improving technology that exists.
Yes.
Your gun doesn't require you to go into town to buy ammo for it.
I was about to say, it reloads on its own.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. It just takes a point of blood every time it...
Sure, whatever.
Hey, you got to get the iron from somewhere. That would be pretty cool, where it just kind of drains you of blood.
Sure.
I'm going to make a magic item that does that now. That's pretty badass. You pay for it in blood, boy.
Blood bolts from a crossbow.
Oh, man, that would be vicious.
Yep.
So how have the characters been brought up with this knowledge? If it's been 100 years, it may just be history, and it's just part of the world. If it's 50 or 5 years, that's a way different perspective to look at stuff.
A great way to look at this is, do your parents remember what the world was like before? Do your grandparents remember what the world was like before? Are you multiple generations in where you're hearing about stories that your great-great-grandparents used to tell?
It's like Gen Z learning about the 90s all over again.
Sure.
Some of us lived through it. Actually, that's the perfect way to sum it up, folks. If you lived in the 90s, it's the first one. If you have read about the 90s, it's the second one. Makes sense?
Sure.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So these two different approaches let you either have your world merge from the beginning,
right,
which is in the case of its ancient history, or at least recent history, or have it blend through gameplay. It's happening now. Everything that's happened now is happening now.
When, sir?
Passed it. When, just now. Sometimes it's fun to merge them together,
yep.
And that's a fun way to start a campaign. Hey, all of a sudden, things started to happen. So it doesn't have to be a gigantic cataclysmic event to blend genres. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's just use guns,
okay,
or gunpowder as an example. So you've got a fantasy campaign. You're rolling in the Forgotten Realms.
Sure.
You've decided you want to kind of add a little Wild West shoot 'em up flavor to things. Okay, you introduce gunpowder. For some reason, the gods allow gunpowder in the Forgotten Realms now.
Yeah.
It's not just related to Gond. And now you've got fighters decking it out with guns, or revolvers even. That would be fun. And that could just be it. Just that technology has now changed society. And you now have two different genres. Now, wizard duels get really interesting. Because now I have spell bullets.
Sure.
Because if I was a wizard, that's what I would do.
Absolutely.
Shoot a man dead and then explode his corpse. Resurrect him as a zombie that's chewing on a donut.
Have you seen my counterspell Magnum?
Oh, yes. That is all. Check out my boomstick.
Yeah.
It does sonic damage. That would be a lot of fun, right? In general, there's a couple of questions you want to ask yourself. What are they, Matt?
We always lead with this. What are the 5 senses of this concept? In this case, what are the 5 senses of the fusion?
Mm-hmm.
What does the blend of genres look like? Like, what's the aesthetic? How does it blend together, and how does that change the appearance of everything?
And we say appearance, we mean descriptions, obviously, but it can also get as detailed as what kind of art you're going to use.
Yeah.
Because if you're making your own game, that's going to have a different stylistic kind of feeling to things.
Absolutely.
And speaking of aesthetic, what's the overall aesthetic?
A lot of us know what cyberpunk looks like. A lot of us know what steampunk looks like.
Twisted Chrome and getting that job from Mr. Johnson, chummer. Or Twisted Chrome and you have to oil things up, my good man, with a top hat and a monocle.
No, sir, it's not chrome for steampunk.
Oh, it's brass.
It's brass and copper.
Yes,
that's
shiny brass and zeppelins.
That's steampunk, sepia tone.
Yeah, a lot of brown.
Yep.
What does it sound like as well? So in a zombie apocalypse, quiet might likely be a prized position. Make
Sure.
noise, the walkers come after you.
Well, not just that, but in a world where the hordes of undead are out the gates, just one moment where that constant moaning of the bloodthirsty hordes ceases would be amazing.
I hate this topic. They're tweeting the whole time. They've got their mobile phones. You like something? I hate you now.
Throwing donuts over the wall.
They are throwing donuts over the wall and DMV cards.
Run these jokes to death.
Where in contrast, let's say you've got a gigantic city world.
Yeah.
So Coruscant is a good example, or even Ravnica is another great one, right? You blend that genre into whatever game world you're playing with. The constant sounds of the city now kind of permeate the game.
Whether it's something like constant traffic or hawkers selling their wares, just what have you, right? There's going to be a constant source of noise in a planet-sized city.
Yeah. And definitely incorporate like actual sound effects into this as well when you're talking about theatrics. And we're talking about finally play up on those theatrics, right? Build that atmosphere. It's not just these two genres got mashed together in a blender. It's what parts of it are influenced. You can pick and choose. It's a game, and it's your story, and that's the most important part. If you want to have cowboys in space, have cowboys in space.
Sure.
I'll play it.
I was going to say.
It's called Firefly.
That's what I was just about to say.
But if you want to add a magic element as well, go for it. Maybe you only want to do a couple of things. You don't like orcs, okay? For whatever reason.
Yeah.
You don't like orcs? Orcs don't have to be in your game.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to play magic cowboys in space, then at that point, you're playing Star Wars, aren't you, basically?
Yes.
You're a smuggler.
Yeah, with Jedis.
Yeah.
With wizards. Laser sword wizards, of course. So that's a lot of fun. Now, finally, we've got a couple of fun genres and kind of their touchstones because we feel that it's necessary to kind of see how all of these games fit together. And a lot of these are actual games that are out.
Right.
And you may not realize the styles that they mash together that make these unique worlds.
Sure. The first one is an absolute cheat, and that's Rifts.
It's every world.
Rift is every world.
Yeah.
Every genre, everything.
We mentioned Shadowrun. That's just urban fantasy plus cyberpunk. Magic meets the Chrome.
Call of Cthulhu is basically noir meets eldritch horror.
Yeah, with a little bit of murder mystery thrown in. We talked about Eberron already, so that's pulp plus steampunk plus fantasy. Probably plus a couple other things, but those are the big three.
Sure. And since we've mentioned it, all of the punks, in quotation marks, are a genre plus an aesthetic. Steampunk, cyberpunk, crystal punk, solar punk, diesel punk, all of those are literally a genre, plus the aesthetic of, realistically, the punk movement of the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. Speaking of which, by the way, we're talking about off-the-rails games. I want to play a Solar Babies meets Mouse Guard. That'd be fun, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, think about that. If you guys don't know what Mouse Guard is, you could play a mouse.
Sure.
But with Solar Babies, like solar punk style, everybody would look really rad. I'm bringing it back, folks.
No, you're not. Absolutely not.
Let's talk about a couple other of weird mashups. We think these are all lots of fun. All right. So first off, anime plus noir.
I think you mentioned if you had sci-fi at that point, you turn it into Cowboy Bebop.
Absolutely. What a great genre of mashups, right?
Modern horror plus a smuggler's run plus survival.
Be a very fun kind of world of darkness.
So what I was thinking was it would make a great take on smuggling Dracula.
Smuggling Dracula?
In the modern day.
Okay.
So you've got one of the large cargo ships Dracula's now loose on the ship, just like from the novel, but it's now modern day.
Interesting. What game would you play with it?
You could do World of Darkness. Oh my gosh, you could have hunters on the ship.
Hunter the Vigil?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Trying to kill Dracula on a big boat?
Yeah, because there's nowhere to go and recuperate.
Dracula, don't you ever forget. Yeah, I love that. Pulp fiction plus revenge plus time travel equals a Jules Verne novel.
Sure.
But what a fun game that would be.
If you did a heist game plus a superhero game.
You got the cartoon Super Crooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you could do that with Mutants and Masterminds.
Absolutely.
That'd be a fun game to play.
You could do it with Villains Unlimited.
Now we also blend some fun genres, sci-fi and pirates. Honestly, pirates in anything. But I'm thinking sci-fi and pirates is either Ice Pirates.
Sure.
Which is a great movie if you haven't seen that. Or like some kind of like...
Time Bandits.
Time Bandits. Yes. Now we're talking. You could have whimsical pirates in the blackness of space. Add a little bit of Western and you get Serenity.
Sure. Back to that.
And going back to Serenity again. It's like, what is it? The 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's the 5 degrees of Serenity.
Sure. How about this? Magical machines plus Monster of the Week.
Power Rangers.
Sure. Exactly.
I like that. That would be a fun game to play. It's just like to be a Power Ranger and you just fight monsters. What a great kind of like episodic game that you could play with your friends. Maybe you don't have a lot of time for a full-on campaign.
It doesn't have to be a one-shot. It can be literally a series of one-shots. It's perfect for that.
All right. Let's try this one. Exploration. We'll do kind of like a low to medium magic world.
Okay.
And Western and horror.
Okay. Well, that's Deadlands. That's the Wild West.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that could be any game too.
Sure.
I like the idea of playing a low magic, maybe even like a Hunter the Vigil in the Wild West, because you don't have all those guns. You've got a gun, maybe a trusty bow and arrow.
Sure.
And that's about it. You're living on the prairie.
A knife.
Yeah. Those werewolves come rolling through. Yeah. That'd be very deadly. A lot of fun.
Bad times.
Bad times.
How about a war campaign plus a crusade plus kaiju?
It's every 90s anime.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about it. Macross, any of the Godzilla cartoons.
Sure.
Robotech. I mean, any of that stuff, really. Anything with giant robots fighting monsters.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun to do an Eldritch horror game plus cyberpunk.
I love the idea of that. I also love the idea that someone somewhere has data jacked a great old one into the net.
Oh, that would be ridiculously fun to play. It becomes like a self-aware sentient AI that just takes over the Matrix.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
How about superheroes plus medieval India?
It's like a Bollywood movie.
I love the way Bollywood does their action movies in that setting. I mean, obviously not with the super spandex and all that stuff, but it has very much a super heroic feel to it. And I think it's so much fun.
That would be a lot of fun to play. Yeah, we'll have to try that sometime. Pulp fiction plus modern and vampires, of course, it's Dusk Till Dawn.
Sure.
And again, that'd be a lot of fun, right? Maybe you're just a hunter, or maybe you're a vampire. We could play it on the other side of the fence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're just trying to get by, doing a little dance, kill a couple people.
I mean, it's their own fault for coming here.
And then those zombies roll through. And they've done one too many Twitter posts.
That's another, like I was saying, that's something you can think about, like how it affects the world. Vampires are going to help deal with the zombie outbreak.
Yes.
Because they're losing their food source.
So the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Absolutely.
That would be interesting. Humans and vampires getting along, killing zombies.
Yeah, the werewolves would jump. Everybody would jump.
They're all taking their phones from the zombies. They got nothing to do, so they all go to the coffee shop and complain.
Yeah. The were-rats are dropping cell towers.
Absolutely. Yeah, they got to get rid of that stuff. Yeah, Elon Musk is the master zombie lord. Race against the clock plus psychedelic whimsy plus exploration.
Death Race Troika?
I could totally see that as a, like,
That would
play Troika, but you play it as a death race.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that. That'd be a fun game to play. And then finally,
The Flintstones plus fantasy plus steampunk.
So Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah. Little magical things are doing all of the work that appliances would normally do.
Hey, throw a little anime in there and you've got, Studio Ghibli movie.
Yep.
I love that. That's great. So there you have it. A couple of options and ways to blend genres a bit better together to create your own world, and also just to kind of add a little bit more flavor if you want to interject a different event into your current game world.
I love mixing and matching genres.
Of course.
It's one of my favorite things to do.
Most games already have it, but if you want to add a little bit more, this is how you do it.
100%.
Any questions or comments? Hit us up at Goblin's Corner on Twitter. Did you enjoy this program? We've got a whole ton more. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player, YouTube and Twitch.
Click the 5 stars and give us a review on iTunes and Podchaser, and on YouTube. Hit the like and subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell. It boosts our show and it feeds the hungry algorithm.
This is currently getting peanut butter into my chocolate, making the two great things that go great together. It's like a Reese's cup.
Yeah, no, I got you. I was with it.
That's all the time we have for tonight. Once again, my name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
We'll see you next time.
Have a good night, folks.
The Goblin's Corner is written and produced by Eric Holden.
And Matt Staples.
Show song by the mighty D20.
This is a Subterranean production.
Basie.